council authorization to participate in the California Statewide Communities Development Authority to accept applications from property owners in this program, which is called a SKIP program. And what it does is it allows the citywide formation of a type of an assessment district where the property owners are able to finance the development fees as well as the improvements through this program. And in the past, the city of Antioch has had assessment districts that were the financing mechanism for many of the improvements in Southeast Antioch, which were then levied against the tax bill on properties and then paid over a period of 20 or 25 years. This program is different in that it's held by a larger statewide group and isn't directly associated with the city of Antioch. And the benefit is, in a typical assessment district, the city is responsible for those bonds if they aren't paid, whereas the city doesn't have any responsibility for this program. The other benefit of this program is that the developers can finance these improvements at a tax-exempt rate, which is often lower than the interest rate on a typical mortgage. And although it shows up on the homeowner's property taxes, overall it provides cost savings to the property owner. So this is just a resolution requesting that authorizing the city to join this statewide community infrastructure program and authorizing the California Statewide Community Development Authority to accept applications from property owners, conduct special assessment proceedings and levy assessments within the territory of the city of Antioch, and approving the form of acquisition agreement for use when applicable and authorized related actions. And I'd be glad to answer any questions. I don't know if there's anybody here.
Yes, I'd just like to, we have Bob Williams from RBC. He's one of the co-founders of this program, so I would like to have him just explain in a little bit more detail. He can give more detail than Ron and I can. If you could please step to the podium.
Thanks, Don.
And that way you can answer all your questions too before you open it up.
Thank you, Bob Williams, RBC. We're the underwriter for the SKIP program. We started this program back in 2003. Actually, we started it using Brentwood as the model, where we had individual projects. We financed their impact fees. We ran them through in this case, it was the Brentwood Infrastructure Financing Authority, and we thought this is a good idea. So we approached CSCDA, which is the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, and structured this program. It's been in operation since 2003. I think you'll recognize some of the projects. Streets of Brentwood is a SKIP project. We just did Emerson Ranch. We did Bethel Island, or Delta Coves for Bethel Island. Sand Creek Business Park, John Muir Parkway, but it's a program where developers, small developers, large developers, can come in, submit applications. You have to sign that application. You have to approve it, and we then process it through our program and issue bonds. And I think the assistant city manager gave a good summary. So if you have questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Councilmember Thorpe.
My only question, maybe this is a Ron question, in that, so why haven't we used this in the past? Or why hasn't this been, why is this coming up now?
I think it was at the request of a specific developer, if I'm not mistaken.
One of the developers that has used SKIP is Meritage, and they're a home builder, and they would like to use it in the fall pool, and so they approached the city and SKIP and CSCDA to ask if you would join.
So what project do they have?
I think they're looking at the Hydorn Village project. So that would be out on Hydorn Ranch Road.
Okay.
Councilmember Tiscarino.
Yeah, I believe when I was conversing and going through this
this item with the city manager. I don't know if it was with you. We had the conversation with.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And I did have some questions regarding the perception of Melrose tax. This is, something what I read that even though it's a collaborative bond, but it's going to be assessed to the development to the property owners of the potential buyers. And I'm hearing, even though you had mentioned a couple of projects out there in Brentwood, what I hear from the streets is that it's a Melrose in their opinion. And one of the things that we promised as a city was that we would, not have any type of Melrose of any kind anymore for the city of Antioch and our residents, because we thought 25-year bond was sufficient enough, particularly on the items that was addressed for. So any new developments that I believe that was occurring would have been done through a community district assessment fee for police and other things like that. So if I'm wrong, I want to know. I've got some clarification. I don't have an issue with this. I just don't like what people perceive as a potential Melrose tax that's going to be assessed in their property.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a Melrose. It's not a Melrose program. I did streets in Brentwood. They may call it a Melrose, but it's not. It's a fixed lien assessment. It is a land tax. It shows up on your property tax bill. By virtue of the fact of joining SCIP, it doesn't show up as a City of Antioch levy. It will show up as a CSCDA SCIP 2017B or 2018A, whatever series you happen to. But there are significant differences between a Melrose. A Melrose is a special tax. It has coverage. The tax can shift around depending on what's developed, what's not developed. It can shift around based on delinquencies. And it doesn't have to finance improvements or fees that specifically benefit the property. This is an assessment. Assessments are really a almost ancient form of, this 1315 Act. This act was enacted over 100 years ago. It's a fixed lien assessment. It has to be disclosed to the home buyer. It has to be disclosed in terms of the principal amount of the bond. It's, to give you an example, the assessments we're talking about are going to range in the range of $25,000 to $30,000 per unit. So the homeowner will know the amount. They will know the schedule of payments. That has to be disclosed by the developer to the homeowner, and it's prepayable. If they don't want to assume it, they can pay it off. If they don't pay it off, then it will show up on their property tax bill, and it's paid off. These are 30-year bonds, but they don't have to keep it out 30 years. They can pay it for 5 years or pay it off whenever they like. I also think the other significant difference is that if they look into what's financed, it's going to be the street in front of their house. It's going to be the fees and impact fees that were charged for their house. And you either finance this through your mortgage or you finance it through the bond. And the bond happens to have some economic advantages. So,
Thank you.
Well, I just wanted
Councilmember Thorpe.
to clarify, and then this is for the city, a Melrose in a community facilities district is the same thing, right?
that's actually,
Yeah, that's correct. It's commonly known as Melrose, but it's the Melrose Community Facilities Act.
Okay. So these newer projects just to clarify, the newer projects that have been approved by previous council do contain Melrose in them as a result of these community facilities district for public safety.
Right, the council did recently approve the formation of a community facilities district with respect to public safety for new development.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Ogerchop.
I just want to make a comment. Melrose is a term that's no longer used because of what Councilmember Tiscarino has stated. They don't use that term anymore. It's assessments, or there's a bond assessment, as you stated, and the assessment has a number behind it. So basically, all these bonds or assessments have changed names, and they no longer use the Melrose because people look for Melrose to see if there was an assessment on their property tax bill. So therefore, but as far as this goes, the developer themselves can pay off these bonds or assessments. They don't have to pass them on, do they, to the next buyer?
Yeah, they can, but they generally will pass them on. It's an important source of capital for them. And from a competitive standpoint, you have many of the cities around you using this type of financing. So it really ultimately is usually, if it's going to be paid off, it's usually paid off by the home buyer.
So basically, this is for the developer who's actually going to develop this property, for them not to have, they put up the money for these fees, the permit fees, the road fees, but now they're getting them back. So when they sell the house, okay, thank you, I got it.
You answered your own question.
Councilmember Wilson.
Just a quick question. I don't know if this goes to you or it goes to Ron. So let's say, I'm just throwing a hypothetical out there. Let's say we do sign up for this tonight. Do we have the option not to use, so say, hey, we signed up for this, we're still trying to assess, we're choosing not to use it at this time until we can get more? Is that option available, or is it once we sign up, we have to?
Well, I mean, the process is that assuming if you pass the resolution, then a developer can submit an application to us, but it has to be signed and approved by the city. So if you pass the resolution and they submitted the application, you said we don't want bonds for this development, and you're going to authorize a city official to sign that, and they don't sign it, then no, we couldn't finance it.
So we do have the option to go on this project. Maybe we don't want to do that here. Okay.
Question is, if they take the bond measure versus not taking the bond measure, they're adding basically their impact fees into the cost of the home versus in taxes. Do you see the home buyer is going to pay for those one way or the other, right? Mm-hmm. Either in the price of the actual home or in taxes on the other side through something like this. Do you see a drop in the housing prices to offset the extra taxes? Is that how this plays out?
Well, it's interesting because, it's hard to say because almost every house in this area has an assessment. But if you decide to approve projects without assessments, then they will be higher. There was a pretty, this program is sponsored by the League and CSAC, and so we went through this extensively, and there was a UC Berkeley study, and ironically, it was Contra Costa County. And basically, they came up with conclusions in West County, the affluent communities, it wasn't as price sensitive, but in East County, it was very price sensitive. So we're talking about, Emerson Ranch. They have $30,000 assessments. So if you have a house, if your builder is going to build something similar to Emerson Ranch, then they're going to have to price $30,000 more because they have not had the use of this financing. And that's, it's the way it is.
Yes, Councilmember Tiscareno.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get clarification here because Councilmember Mayor Hernandez-Thorpe brought up a scenario that I like to get a little bit of clarification. We once had a Melrose District assessment fee for a particular area that took care of like Pruitt Ranch and parks and all kinds of different, so it was a wide variety of areas that this Melrose took care of. The things that we approved just recently for developers are specific to their development. I believe it has nothing to do with anything else other than infrastructure for within their development. So I think there's a slight little difference in the community district fees and the Melrose.
So the CFD that built Pruitt Water Park, and the schools, many of the schools in Southeast Antioch, that was we'll call it an assessment against the property paid over, say, 25 years. In the case of the police services fee, that's an ongoing fee that is assessed on an annual basis. So it's not for capital improvements, that's for operations. So they're two different uses of the Melrose fee.
And that's what I was trying to get clear.
Yes.
Councilmember Thorpe.
Two different uses, but it's still whether it's you call it a community facilities district, it's a Melrose. At the end of the day, they're governed by the same law, or they're authorized with the same law. In any instance, the use has nothing to do whether or not it's a Melrose or not. It just happens to be a Melrose. Our community facilities districts for police are Melrose.
Correct.
Well, I think the distinction is, Melrose could be used for capital or operations. Now, SKIP is just capital, and again, it's not a Melrose, it's an assessment.
And this is, as I'm understanding, this is just a funding mechanism for the developer to be able to move the project along. Is that?
It's primarily to make the project
is
more.
it a cheaper funding mechanism at an interest rate that the SKIP create an interest rate that allows that to be an advantage?
Typically, usually it is, but right now, this rate would be about 4.5% for 30 years. It's at or about what a mortgage rate is. As interest rates go up, it'll become more competitive. It's right now, it's just primarily for competitive reasons, and it's an internally cheaper source of capital for developers.
Councilmember Ogurchuk.
So if it's all right, I'm going to make a motion the City Council adopt the resolution authorizing the city to join the Statewide Community Infrastructure Program, authorizing the California Statewide Communities Development Authority to accept applications for property owners, conduct special assessments proceedings, and levy assessments within the territory of the City of Antioch, approving form of acquisition agreement for use when applicable, and authorizing related actions.
Before we go on, Mr. Mayor,
Motion, yes.
isn't this a public hearing? Do we need to open
I
it?
think there is a public hearing.
This is in public hearing.
Yes.
Are there any, if there's no more,
Yeah, if
Questions
there's no
we
more
can
comment,
ask.
questions for
we can
the
open it
presenter.
up for public comments.
Correct.
So there's no more sheets up here. I think, do we have sheets? Yeah, we have one public comment.
Is that good enough? I don't want to hold up the whole council since we're late. I'll fill it out.
Tim McCall.
Mayor Wright, I think you almost had it. It appears to me that this is a way for developers to pass hidden costs to the homeowners. I don't believe they're going to sell a $300,000 house for $270 and then add the taxes. They're going to sell $300,000 house for $300,000, and then they're going to profit another $30,000 that they passed on to the homeowner in these assessment taxes. It really appears to be a hidden tax.
Are there any other public comments? This public hearing, one more public comment?
Good evening. My name
Please.
is Walt Schluter. I live here in Antioch. One of my questions is, with this assessment that then goes on a taxpayer's bill, is that assessment, can that be deducted in his property tax that he uses as a deduction on his tax return, or is it outside of that?
Walt, if you would please fill out, there's a sheet.
Sure.
We're not really allowed to give tax advice, but yes, the interest portion is deductible.
Very good. Thank you. With that, if there are no more public comments, we will close the public hearing. And I'll let Councilmember Ogurchuk continue her motion.
Do you need me to reread it? Are you good?
We're good. We have a motion by Councilmember Ogurchuk. Do we have a second? Councilmember Thorpe?
I'll second it. I'm not supporting this, but so that there can be conversation since we were criticized
So
last
now
time.
we have a first and a second. We will open this up to our discussion. As I see this, this is something that many surrounding communities are doing for competitive standpoint. Each developer then has to still come before us and see if it is something that we approve in the actual development. This, as I understand it, this just puts us in with the SKIP program so that people could potentially take advantage of it in our city.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and speak in support of the motion as well. My questions were regarding clarification and perception of, Melrose and liabilities or responsibility taken by the city, and I was assured that that's not the case. This is, a collaborative effort between developers and the SCIP program and the potential buyers of the community. So if it's transparent and they're in agreement, they purchase the home. If they're not, then they go somewhere else. What I'm looking forward is if we're going to do any kind of development out here, we want to make sure that we are transparent. We want to give everybody the best option and opportunity to pursue anything out here. So if this is one option to make it encourageable for our developers to come out here, I think I can support that. So I'll speak in favor.
Councilmember Ogorchuk.
Just as a real estate agent, every time I sell a house, especially in the Brentwood, Oakley area, I make sure that the buyers see the tax bill. Everybody needs to see the tax roll so they know all their special assessments that are on the tax roll. This is, as stated, this is just giving us approval to move forward, make the resolution. So the developers would have to come forth on each one. So it's just opening up the opportunity for the city.
If there's nothing further, I will call for a vote. Council members, please cast your votes. Item number 3 passes with approval of a 4-1 vote. Moving on to item number 4.